Friends, welcome to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me. And we're starting. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Janie, whom I had been married to for 7 years, was sitting on a table in the dining car with her friend Jim, who was making love to the point of death. I looked around, thinking that there must be an attendant or a waiter somewhere, but strangely enough, he was not there. At that moment, all the love I had for my wife died. It was supposed to be a fun excursion for the two of us to reunite. I was surprised when she told me that Jim, her work friend, would be there. She insisted that he was a friend to both of us, but to tell the truth, I didn't care about this guy, and at the time I couldn't think of any reason why he would want to come with us. But now I knew. I also knew that I would need proof for my divorce. Oh yes, it was over between us. Of course, the sight of them making love on the table made me a little nervous, but there was no way I was going to tolerate this complete disrespect. I took out my cell phone and started recording their date on video. I had no desire to watch or hear what they had to say. They seemed to have been making love on this table for ages, and I couldn't believe how rude Jim was to her. She even seemed to like it. Maybe I should have been rude to her, but it just wasn't my style. Finally, they stopped, and Janie straightened her dress, giving Jim her panties, beautiful new panties that I thought she bought for me. He smiled and held them up to his face, inhaling her scent. "We have to be careful," she said as they took their seats. "If George finds out about us, he won't be happy at all." "Fuck that weakling," Jim said with a grin. "We've been making love all last year and he never found out." What? I thought to myself. Has this shit been going on for a year? I knew that Janie and I had a bit of a strained relationship because of my busy work schedule, but damn it, that's what allowed us to keep a roof over our heads. Of course, Janie also worked, but her salary, whatever it was, went to pay for the things she wanted. Clothes, accessories, trips to the beauty salon, and so on. That was the whole idea of taking a few days off to travel a little by rail, see the sights, and spend time in each other's arms. "So," Jim said, "are you going to make him clean out my liquid when you get back to him?" "That would be so vicious, wouldn't it?" "What is it?" she asked. "Did you do as I said about the contraceptives?" he asked. Janie nodded her head. "Yes," she said. "I stopped taking it so you could get me pregnant. I told George that I have my period this week, so he doesn't expect any love." They both laughed heartily at this. "So why are you staying with him?" Jim asked. "Obviously you don't love him, or you wouldn't do this to him." "Well, it's not that I don't love him," she said. "I like him enough, but I just don't have that burning love for him anymore. Besides, he makes a good salary, and you know I couldn't live on what I earn." "You're staying with him for the money," he said. She nodded her head. "Pretty much," she said. "Damn it, I could never afford the comfort he got on this trip, and neither could you." "When do you want to get back together?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe later this evening after he goes to bed," she said. I saw and heard enough and finished recording the video. I returned to the sleeping car where Janie and I were staying and considered my options. The divorce was self-evident, but there had to be something more. Both she and her boyfriend had bills to pay. I took out my phone again and went to the contacts section in search of my lawyer's number. "Fred Juergens," the man said, answering the phone. "Fred, this is George. I need you to start preparing the divorce papers for me, and I want you to use the prenuptial agreement," I said. "Divorce?" Fred asked in surprise. "Are you sure about this?" "I've never been so sure of anything in my life," I said. "On what basis?" Fred asked. "Adultery," I said. "I have a video that I can send you if you need proof." "Yes, do it," Fred said. "I have a prenuptial agreement here, so it won't take too long to get it done. When do you want her to submit the documents?" "The sooner the better," I said. "We'll be back in Springfield in a couple of days, so maybe you can arrange for her papers to be handed over at the train station. I also need to find out everything I can about her boyfriend, Jim Simpson. He's working with her." "I'll have our investigator look into it," Fred said. "Send me a video and I'll watch it. Don't do anything stupid, okay?" "Yes, of course," I said. "You know me." "Yes, I know," Fred said. "That's why I said don't do anything stupid." Fred always made me laugh. We ended the conversation and I sent Fred a video. Then I leaned back in my seat and thought for a minute about what else I could do. I took out my tablet and connected my phone to it. After transferring the video to the tablet, I turned on the phone's access point and used it to connect my tablet to our home network via a VPN, or virtual private network. I set this up a while ago to have secure access to my files from anywhere in the world. The first thing I did was log into our banking system and did a typical dance, closed joint cards, transferred funds, etc. I didn't want to take any chances, even considering the prenuptial agreement. I had another evil thought. Janie loved using her home computer for her personal email. Fortunately, she didn't know much about things like security, so I was able to log into her email account with a couple of mouse clicks. I copied the video first to my tablet, then to my home computer. After opening her email client, I wrote an email trying to sound like her. I used a banal theme that sounded like hers. Check out my fun train ride. In the body, I wrote, "Look what I'm doing while my ignorant hubby is sleeping." Then I attached the video to an email and sent it to everyone who was on her contact list. That's right, friends, family, her work colleagues, anyone who can. I looked at it for a minute, then clicked send. To hell with all this, I thought to myself. I opened the door to our compartment just in time to see one of the conductors. I motioned for him to come over when he looked up at me. "Is everything all right, sir?" he asked. "Well, my wife says she wants to move to another compartment," I said. "Could you tell me which compartment Jim Simpson is in?" The guide consulted his tablet for a moment before answering. "Do you want your wife's things moved to this compartment?" he asked. "Are you sure? It's not nearly as pleasant in economy class as it is here." "That's life," I said. He nodded his head understandingly. "I see," he said. "Of course I'll help you pack her things." We worked quickly, not really caring how well her clothes were packed. As soon as we were done, I helped the conductor carry her things to his compartment, which was less than half the size of ours. I laughed, throwing her things on his little bunk bed. Let her figure it out on her own, I thought to myself. "I'll need to make her a new key card," the guide said. He took a white card out of his pocket and inserted it into a magnetic recording device connected to his tablet. When he finished, he looked at me. "Do you know where she is?" he asked. I nodded my head. "I know where she was the last time I saw her," I said. "Lead the way," he said. We walked through the entire train and entered the dining car. Johnny and Jim were still making eyes at each other when we approached them. I sat down on one of the chairs at the table and the clerk caught Joni's attention. "Yes?" she asked, looking worried. "I need to give you your new key card," he said, "and take the old one." She looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "What is it?" she asked. "There's obviously been a mix-up in the allocation of seats, so I need to give you your new key," he said. This guy was as cool as a cucumber, I thought. Angered, Joni pulled out her key card and handed it to the attendant. He smiled and handed her a new card. "Thank you," he said. "Have a nice trip." He turned and walked away. Joni glared at me. "What the fuck are you doing?" "What is it?" she asked. "I'm just making it easier for you and Jim to play," I said. Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "What is it?" she asked. "Do you think I don't know about you two?" I asked. Joni started to get nervous. She glanced at Jim and he looked worried. He looked at her key card and noticed the compartment number. "Wait," he said. "This is the key to my compartment." I nodded my head. "I thought that way you two wouldn't have to make love on the dining room table," I said. "I understand that it may be a little cramped here, but that's the way it is. By the way, did Joni ever tell you about the prenuptial agreement she signed when we got married?" "What are you talking about?" Jim asked. "Well, if you're going to make love to someone's wife, you should know a little bit about her first. Do you agree?" I asked. "Look, it was all just for fun," he said. "We didn't mean anything by it." Joni spoke up. "That's right, George," she said. "It was all just for fun. It won't affect our marriage in the slightest." "Really?" I asked, taking out my tablet. I scrolled through the video to the part where they were talking and clicked on the play icon. "Listen to this," I said. "I like him enough, but I just don't have that burning love for him anymore. Besides, he brings a good salary and you know that I couldn't live on what I earn," said Joni's voice in the video. "So you're staying with him for the money," Jim said in the video. She nodded her head. I stopped the video and looked at her. "So bitch," I said. "I'm just a walking salary for you." "Honey," she began. I stopped her. "You'll never be able to call me cute, honey, or anything else, bitch," I said. "I don't think you should even call me by my first name. I think you should call me Mr. Duvalier. And since you don't consider yourself my wife, I'll take this, I added, taking off her wedding ring. And I'll take this, I added, grabbing her purse and taking the house key out of the big key ring she kept there. I took off my wedding ring and put it in front of Jim. You can take this, I don't need it anymore. I turned to Jim. The prenuptial agreement she signed, Jim, says that in the case of adultery, the guilty party in this case, Joni, gets absolutely nothing. I'll leave her her clothes and jewelry, but that's all. I don't think she can keep paying for her car. Fortunately, I have issued the documents in her name, so the blow will be dealt to her credit rating. You fucking bastard, he said, starting to get up. I grabbed a fork and tried to pierce his arm. He sat down again. Don't mess with me, asshole, I said. Please, Joni said, and tears welled up in her eyes. Mr. Duvalier, please don't do this. I've learned my lesson. Can't you forgive me and we can put this behind us? No, I said, rewinding the video to the moment when they started talking about getting Joni pregnant. I played the video so they could both hear clearly. You two have been doing this shit to me for a year now, and you conspired to get pregnant by Jim and marry the baby to mine, I hissed, looking at Joni. Right now I hate the hell out of you, and I pray to God that I never see you. I looked at Jim before I spoke again. Did you want a lying, cheating bitch, asshole? You got it, I said. Good luck. I think she won't get much support from her family and friends. What do you mean? Joni asked. I shrugged my shoulders. Check your email, I said. She took out her phone and opened the mobile mail app. Her eyes widened. What did you do? What is it? She asked. I was just sharing your impressions with your family and friends, I said. You looked like you were having such a great time. I just knew you'd be happy to share it with others. You bastard, she hissed. My parents just disowned me, and my sister says she never wants to see me again. My friends think I'm a worthless cheater, and now they all hate me. Can you blame them? I asked calmly. I gave you the 7 best years of my life. All this time I've only loved you and never even thought about another woman. I worked my ass off for you. I bought that big house that you just had to have. I bought you that new BMW. I have never complained when you spent all your money on yourself, and I have never complained when you allegedly left with the girls. And what did I get in return? You're ripping out my heart. You're cheating on me and ruining our marriage, so I don't blame them a bit. Please just give me one more chance, she pleaded. I shook my head. No, I said. You could have ended it at any moment, but you chose not to. So this is the end of the road. You've chosen your bed and now you're going to sleep in it. I hope it was all worth it for you. I think you'll get your papers when we get to Springfield. Just sign the papers and get it over with. I don't care. Jay. Mr. Duvalier, she said. Is there anything I can do to make it up to you? I'll do anything. I stood up and thought for a moment before answering. Yes, I said. There is one thing. Actually, 2 things. Her eyes lit up in anticipation. Eat shit and die. She fainted in tears when I turned around and walked away. I could hardly hold back my tears as I returned to my compartment. After I closed and locked the door, my phone rang. They were her parents. Obviously, they saw the video I sent them. George, what the hell is going on? Cliff, Johnny's father, asked. Hi, Cliff, I said. I caught your daughter with another man. I made a video and sent it to you. I am filing for divorce on the basis of a prenuptial agreement. I think she'll be served when the train arrives in Springfield. I wanted you to know why I'm divorcing her. Is there any way to ignore it? He asked. Divorce is so radical. No, Cliff, I said. If you listen to what your daughter and her lover have said, you will understand that I cannot accept her betrayal in any way. I'm just her salary, that's all. She even wanted me to raise another man's child. That stupid girl, he said. I heard you disowned her, I said. No, he said. I asked her to give me at least one good reason not to disown her. I'm still waiting. Well, anyway, I'm glad you made us sign this prenup, I said. It probably didn't happen the way you imagined, but you did me a great favor. I'm sorry, George, he said. You're right, and since then I've loved you like the son I never had. I think highly of you too, I said. Is there anything we can do? He asked. Actually, yes, I said. Do you still have that spare house key I gave you? Yes, we have it, he said. Could you call a truck and pick up her things from the house? I asked. I'll be out of town for a couple more days and I don't want her in the house. I'll reimburse you for the cost of the truck. Of course we can do that, he said. What about her car? You can take it too, but I'm not sure how long she'll be able to use it, I said. Maybe you can teach her how to make a budget, or maybe she can trade it for something she can afford. All right, he said. Look, George, I'm really sorry about all this. It's not your fault, I said. We said goodbye and ended the conversation. The phone rang the second I put it in my pocket. It was Joni's cousin, Lisa. I answered the phone. What do you want, Lisa? I asked. So you finally found out about Joni? What is it? She asked. Yes, I said. I take it you're going to divorce that worthless bitch? What is it? She asked. Of course, I said. I have already taken some steps. All right, she said. You know I've always been partial to you. To tell you the truth, I found Lisa pretty damn attractive too. But I was married to her cousin, so that made her unavailable. Well, you're pretty yourself, I said. Lisa had a habit of wearing short skirts and tiny ripped shorts next to me, and it always delighted me. So you noticed, she said. Of course, I told her. Now that you've kicked that bitch out, do you think we can sleep together? What is it? She asked. Maybe when the divorce is final, I said. Okay, I understand, she said. I've been waiting for you for 7 years, so I think I can wait a few more months. Then I'm going to please you until you finish the job in my mouth. I'll see you when you get back. The call ended, leaving me alone with a boner. In the end, something good can come out of all this. The next 2 days passed pretty quickly for me. I spent most of my time talking on the phone. I rarely left my compartment so as not to come face to face with these two traitors. I got word from Fred, who told me what I suspected. Jim Simpson was a famous womanizer who was divorced twice because of infidelity. His last wife also brought charges of domestic violence against him. I assumed that Joni would gravitate towards someone like that, but I hoped that she would wake up in time and leave him. Shortly before the train arrived in Springfield, Joni knocked on my door. Who is this? I asked through the closed door. It's me, Johnny, she said. What do you want? I asked. I want my husband back, she screamed. Cool shit, dog, I said. I want a faithful wife who would love me, but I didn't get it, did I? Please, Jay. Mr. Duvalier, I made a mistake, she exclaimed. You've gone way beyond a mistake, bitch, I said. Get out of here before I call security. You should be in economy class. Please, she begged. Can't we just talk? No, I said. Go away, I never want to see you again. I heard her sniffle as she left. There was a part of me that felt sorry for her, but I didn't really care. She brought it all on herself with her lies, betrayal, and disrespect. I got off the train and looked around to see if I could see her and Jim. I saw them getting off the train a few carriages away. Neither of them looked too happy. Cool shit, I thought to myself. While I was watching, a man came up to Joni and handed her a thick paper envelope. She opened it and immediately burst into tears. I smiled and walked away. I got into my car and drove home. I noticed that Joni's car was gone and all her belongings had been taken out, including several pieces of furniture that she had when we first got married. I put my things away and walked around the house, taking all the photos that showed her. I wanted nothing to remind me of that cheating bitch. A couple of hours later, I heard a knock on the door. I looked out the window and saw Lisa. God, she looked colorful in those shorts. I opened the door and let her in. She was carrying a large platter with something that smelled like lasagna. She came in as if she were the mistress of the house and put the dish on the kitchen table. When she turned back to me, I looked her up and down. She was wearing a short t-shirt that reached just below her chest, and I could see her breasts bulging out from under the t-shirt. Her shorts were shorter than I remembered, and there was a very tiny piece of fabric between her legs. I wanted to make sure you had something delicious, she said. I don't want you to get hungry. Thank you, Lisa, I said. I appreciate it. Her eyes sparkled as she smiled. Would you like to stay and have dinner with me? I'd love to, she said. Go wash up and I know where everything is. I went upstairs and washed up quickly before coming back. By the time I returned, the table was already set, and Lisa even poured each of us a glass of wine. I pulled out a chair for her and admired her slender hips as she sat down. She grabbed my plate and put a nice piece of lasagna on it, which had a lot of meat and a layer of cheese. I thought it took a lot of work on her part. After she helped herself to a small portion, I looked at her. It looks delicious, I said. Thank you, she said in response. I love cooking, especially for those who are really dear to me. Indeed, the lasagna was as delicious as it looked, and I ate every bite, even wiped the plate with a piece of garlic bread that she baked. You must be hungry, she said. There's no way I'm going to waste such a delicious meal, I said. It was the best lasagna I've ever tasted. She smiled, coming close to me. I'm glad you liked it, she said, sitting down on my lap. There's a lot more where it came from, and maybe someday I'll even bring you dessert, she added, lifting up her t-shirt to show off her beautiful size 2 breasts. I felt a familiar stirring in my pants as she gave me a hot, wet kiss. I need to go home and feed my cat, but I'll be there tomorrow. I can't wait, I said. She smiled as she stood up. This is just a preview of what I've prepared for you, she said. I guess I'll just have to let little George take care of me until your divorce is final. Little George? I asked. That's what I call my vibrator, she said. I like to fantasize about how you turn me on while I use it on myself. I see, I said. Well, let's hope that Janie won't dispute the divorce. We kissed a little before Lisa left. Fortunately, Janie did not resist the divorce. Obviously, she realized that I had baffled her and decided to end the marriage. She and Jim managed to keep their jobs, but from what I've heard, they had a hard time. She signed the documents and called me to apologize and tell me that the job was done. Fred called to inform me that the signed papers have been submitted and in 30 days I will be a free man. Was I happy? I was glad to get rid of my cheating wife, but some part of me felt that something was missing. For many years I loved only this woman and hoped to retire with her surrounded by children and grandchildren. But it wasn't meant to be. I was also upset that I hadn't been able to get back at Jim. I was thinking about applying for an attachment alienation, but Fred said it was a waste of time. I thought about beating him half to death, but changed my mind because I had no desire to go to prison. Lisa came every night with something she had cooked, and we shared dinner. She even made a note on my calendar, counting down the days until the divorce becomes final. She was a tireless teaser and even gave me a couple of DVDs filled with her selfies and home videos with little George. I spent most of my evenings watching videos of Lisa sticking this dildo in, moaning my name and begging me to love her. She always ended up blowing me a kiss and promising to love me passionately. I definitely had something to look forward to. Pretty soon, the 30 days expired and I received the document stating that the divorce had taken place. I was surprised that I didn't hear anything from Janie, as I thought she should have called or done something stupid by now, but she didn't. Well then, Lisa didn't wait for my call. She came that day and knocked on the door. It seemed strange to me because I had already given her the key to the house and told her that she could come at any time. I opened the door and experienced the strongest shock of my life. There she was on the front porch. She was standing completely naked, and her bare feet were spread wide enough for me to see her labia. I took her inside and kissed her hard, running my hands over her smooth skin. She kissed me back just as hard, all the while ripping off my clothes. "Love me more than I do, baby," she moaned. "I'm your woman now. Take me." Who am I to complain? "This is so much better than I ever thought," she moaned. "Don't ever stop making me feel good, George. Do it with me. Make me your personal cheater. Please, baby, I love you so much." "I love you too," I said, crushing her under me and sliding between her spread legs. We made love a few more times on the couch and finally went to the bedroom, where we made love most of the night. When we hugged each other, I realized that I had to be with this woman for the rest of my life. She must have thought the same thing. She turned on her side and looked into my eyes. "I've always loved you, George," she said. "I will never do to you what my stupid cousin did. I want to spend the rest of my life right here with you." "Does that mean you're going to marry me?" I asked. She smiled and hugged me. "Yes, baby," she said. "I will marry you and make you the happiest person on earth." We kissed and made love a little more before falling asleep in each other's arms. A few days later, Joni's father called me. Lisa and I had just finished making love and were leaning back in bed watching a movie while sharing a bowl of popcorn. "George, Johnny's in the hospital," he said. I sat down, surprised. "What happened?" I asked. "That jerk she was with beat her half to death," he said. "I told her to call the police, but she refused." "Is she going to be okay?" I asked. "Eventually, but I don't think it will be for long if she stays with him," he said. "Okay, we'll go over there and check on her," I said. "We?" her father asked. "Yes, Lisa and I said. "Is Lisa there with you?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I couldn't have done it without her." "All right," he said. "I understand. I'll meet you at the hospital." After we finished talking, I explained to Lisa what had happened and told her what I had learned about Jim fucking Simpson. We were both angry at Janie for what she had done, but neither of us wanted to physically hurt her. We cleaned up, got dressed, and headed to the hospital. After talking to the nurse, we were taken to her room. She looked terrible. Her face was black and blue, and one eye was swollen shut. One arm was in a cast, and liquid was dripping into the other from an IV drip. She moaned faintly as we entered the room. I wanted to hug her and tell her that everything would be fine, but I didn't do it. "Jay, Mr. Duvalier," she said, and a tear rolled down her cheek. I raised my hand to stop her. "You can call me George," I said. "What happened?" "Jim wanted to use my car to take his date, and I told him no," she said slowly. "He got angry and started hitting me, calling me all sorts of names. I told him it was my car, and almost half of my check was going to pay, and there was no way I was going to let him use it to impress some cheater. He didn't stop beating me until I threatened to call 911, and that's when he ran away. I do not know where he is. I was having a really hard time breathing, and my chest hurt really bad, so I called 911 and they came and brought me here." "Did you tell the cops what happened?" Lisa asked. "No," she said. "I was afraid to do it. I thought if they put him in jail, he'd kill me when he got out." I shook my head at the shit I heard. "Let me get this right," I said. "You ran away to live with the guy you cheated on me with, and now he's cheating on you." "It's true?" She sobbed and nodded her head. "Yes," she said. "I really screwed up, didn't I?" "Yes, you did," Lisa said. "But you don't deserve it. He committed a crime and he needs to be put behind bars." "Johnny," I said, "did you know that he had a history of domestic violence?" "I knew he could be a little rude, but no, I didn't know that," she said. Lisa hugged her cousin and tried to comfort her. Janie noticed the diamond ring on her finger. "Are you engaged?" Janie asked. Lisa smiled and nodded her head. "Yes," she said. "George and I are going to get married." Janie began to sob and her tears soaked Lisa's t-shirt. "But you're still my cousin, and I still love you, even though I think you're a stupid dog for what you did to George." Just at that moment, Janie's parents entered the room. They were furious when Lisa and I told them what had happened. "All right," Cliff said to Janie. "We'll stay here with you and move you back to the house when you're discharged. You're going to stay with us until you can get back on your feet." He looked at me and motioned me out into the hallway. "What do you know about this guy Simpson?" he asked. I told him what I'd learned from Fred, and he nodded his head, making mental notes. "And you say he works with Johnny?" "Yes," I said. He nodded his head once more. "Okay, I'll take care of Simpson," he said. "I'm not going to discuss this with you. You don't need to know the details, trust me. What's going on with Lisa?" "Well, she helped me get through the divorce, and now we're engaged," I said. He smiled and nodded his head. "I'm not surprised," he said. "She's always been partial to you. Congratulations. At least you'll still be part of the family." "Thanks," I said. "Is there anything I can do to help with Simpson?" He shook his head. "No," he said. "I'll take care of everything. Besides, you're getting married soon, and the last thing Lisa needs is for her new husband to be in jail. The less you know, the better." Cliff was walking down the hallway talking to someone on his cell phone. I headed back to Janie's room. Janie's mother looked at us. "I'm staying with her tonight," she said. "Cliff will make sure to get her things out of this man's apartment. Thanks for stopping by." "You're welcome," I said, hugging her. Janie looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said. "For everything. Can you forgive me?" I thought for a moment before I spoke. "I think so," I said, realizing that the other two women were looking at me. "In the end, we will still be a family." "Thank you," she said. I went over and hugged her goodbye. "Get well," I said, kissing her lightly on the forehead. "Take good care of him," Janie told Lisa. "Please." Lisa smiled and nodded her head. "I'm going to do it," she said. We left the hospital and headed home. I had no idea what Cliff meant about Jim, but I had heard stories about his military service. I also knew that he had friends in high and low circles, so I followed the local news, even looked through the obituaries. I didn't see anything there, but a week later a small article appeared in the local newspaper about how a man was attacked and brutally beaten near a local bar. According to the story, a man named Jim Simpson was confronted by a group of men who eventually broke 3 of his ribs, jaw, kneecap, and arm. The story also said something about his testicles being severely damaged. I couldn't help but laugh at that. Cliff took Joni's things from the apartment and moved her back to his house. Her parents hated what she did to me, but she was still their daughter, and they still loved her. Lisa and I got married a couple of months later. Since her parents died in a car accident a few years ago, Cliff walked her down the aisle and shook my hand. Joni came with her parents and cried when the preacher declared us husband and wife. We had a great honeymoon in Las Vegas, where Lisa turned me on as often as she could. When we returned, we moved her things into the house. She decided that since I was earning more than enough for the two of us, she would quit her job. "I have a new job now," she told me. "What is it?" I asked. "To make you happy," she said with a sly smile. And she did it. And then one day, a few months later, she attacked me with words that every husband is afraid of. "We need to talk," she said after I got home from work. "Is something wrong?" I asked, dreading her answer. "Well," she said, "we'll need to redo one of the bedrooms." "Why?" I asked. She smiled. "Because," she said, "you're going to be a dad." I jumped for joy and took her in my arms, covering her face with kisses. "Are you happy?" "What is it?" she asked. "I'm the luckiest man in the world," I said. "Then take me upstairs and show me how happy you are, big guy," she said. I did it, over and over again. Yes, I thought, sometimes life gives you lemons, and sometimes you get something much better in return. End.